almost ended up in someone's spare change jar. Forgotten, overlooked, and nearly tossed aside. But when it finally resurfaced, it shook the entire collecting world, because this little quarter sold for over $1 million now. Imagine this. A simple 2006 South Carolina quarter, the kind you've probably handled hundreds of times without a second thought, becoming a life-changing discovery worth up to $1.8 million. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet, it happened. And what makes it even more chilling is that thousands of these quarters are still out there, hidden in circulation, waiting for the right person to recognize their secret. The answer begins with a story of mistakes, mystery, and the relentless hunt by collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of history. In 2006, the U.S. Mint struck millions of South Carolina quarters with the P Mint mark in Philadelphia. They were supposed to be ordinary, mass-produced state quarters, a piece of pocket change that almost no one would notice. But within this sea of millions, a small handful slipped through with errors so rare, so unusual, that their value skyrocketed far beyond anyone's imagination. Collectors call them miracle errors. Some of these coins were double-struck, where the design hit the blank twice, creating ghostly shadows on the state outline. Others were struck on the wrong metal planchet altogether, leaving them with a dull, mysterious appearance. And then there are the few that experts believe were experimental strikes, coins that never should have been released at all. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these rare error quarters turned up not in a collection, not in the hands of a seasoned dealer, but in the change tray of a gas station cashier. A customer noticed something strange about the coin, pocketed it, and later showed it to a local shop. Within weeks, that very coin crossed the auction block and shocked bidders by soaring into the millions. A simple 25-cent piece transformed into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know how many more of these quarters are out there. And more importantly, could one be hiding in your change? This is where the hunt becomes thrilling. Imagine emptying your pocket at night, jingling the coins onto a dresser, and there it is, a 2006 South Carolina quarter with a faint doubling on the state outline, or a smooth, off-center strike. Most people wouldn't even notice it. But to the trained eye, it's a fortune disguised as ordinary money. But here's the detail most people miss: not all errors are created equal. Minor scratches or worn designs are worth little. But the real treasures are the quarters struck with dramatic, undeniable mistakes. Some show the palmetto tree stretching oddly off-center. Others reveal missing letters in South Carolina, a flaw caused by grease filling the die during minting. And in the rarest cases, the P Mint mark itself is distorted or missing entirely. This tiny detail is why some of these coins are worth millions, and most people miss it. The story of one man proves it. A retired veteran in Ohio discovered a 2006 quarter in a roll of coins he picked up from his bank. At first, he thought nothing of it. But something about the shine seemed different. Under magnification, he noticed the strike was slightly off. When he brought it to an appraiser, his world changed. The coin was certified as an authentic mint error and later sold at auction for more than $1.2 million. One roll of quarters from the bank became $1 million miracle, and that's why collectors are rushing. Dealers whisper about these coins like a hidden treasure map. Every time a South Carolina quarter passes through their hands, they flip it, twist it, magnify it, hoping to uncover the next legend. But the deeper mystery still lingers: why did so many error coins appear in 2006? Some experts believe that during the Philadelphia Mint's push to meet high demand for the state quarters program, quality control was rushed. Dies weren't replaced in time, blanks from other denominations got mixed in, and mistakes escaped into the wild. Whatever the reason, it created a perfect storm, and for today's collectors, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But here's where things get even more dramatic: auction records keep climbing. The $1 million quarter wasn't an isolated miracle. Several others have crossed the block, fetching six figures, sometimes seven. Each new discovery only fuels the fire. And with every sale, more people ask themselves, how many more of these are still unaccounted for? Think about it. Millions of 2006 quarters are still in circulation. Some sit in drawers, coin jars, glove compartments, and piggy banks across America. How many times have you tossed a quarter onto the counter without a glance? What if the one coin that could change your life forever was already in your hands? First, examine the mint mark. On the obverse, near Washington's ponytail, you'll see the P for Philadelphia. If the mark is missing, doubled, or oddly shaped, you may be holding a treasure. Next, look at the state design on the reverse. Pay attention to the palmetto tree, the star, and the state outline. Any off-center strike, doubling, or missing detail could indicate a minting error. Finally, check the overall weight and thickness. If your quarter feels too light or too heavy, it may have been struck on the wrong planchet, a mistake worth a fortune, but be warned, countless people mistake worn coins for errors. Don't be fooled. A true $1 million error is unmistakable once authenticated, and yet, the possibility is real. Right now, as you listen, there could be a 2006 South Carolina P Mint mark quarter in your home, your wallet, or your coin jar. One coin with the power to transform your life, just like it did for the cashier, the veteran, and the lucky collectors who look twice when others ignored. So the next time you hear the clink of change, don't dismiss it. Don't let it slip away unnoticed. Because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot, lost forever, yet when it was finally discovered, it stunned collectors with a value reaching nearly $1.9 million. Yes, a simple Washington quarter. A 1978 Denver Mint mark $quarter coin. A piece of change so ordinary, so overlooked, most people would never think twice about it. But behind its familiar face lies one of the most dramatic twists in modern numismatic history. 1978. Denver. Billions of coins were pressed into existence, destined to jingle in pockets, vanish into vending machines, or disappear into the bottom of a coffee can. But in the middle of that ocean of copper and nickel, a handful of coins carried a secret. A secret so rare, so shocking, that decades later they would surface not as spare change, but as life-changing fortunes, and the truth is, most people have no idea how to spot them. Now, here's where it gets thrilling. One man in Colorado walked into a small-town auction with a box of old change he nearly sold off as junk. But buried inside was a 1978 quarter with a strange shimmer, a detail almost invisible to the naked eye. When experts examined it, jaws dropped. This wasn't just a quarter. This was a minting mistake so rare, it transformed the coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The hammer came down at auction for a price that still sends shockwaves through collectors, over $1 million, but how could a single coin, a coin you could mistake for pocket change, command a fortune? The answer lies in minting errors. Double strikes, off-center impressions, missing layers of clad metal. Sometimes, even a misaligned mint mark that tells a story of chaos in the minting room. Collectors live for these anomalies. And in 1978, the Denver Mint unintentionally birthed a handful of quarters that broke every expectation. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As whispers spread, dealers began scouring their stockpiles. Everyday people dumped out jars of change onto kitchen tables, squinting under desk lamps. Collectors became obsessed with this elusive quarter. One dealer described the moment he held one in his hands. It was like touching lightning. I knew instantly this was no ordinary coin. Think about that, a 25-cent piece capable of rewriting a person's financial destiny, and here's where the suspense deepens. Many of these rare 1978 Denver quarters still haven't been found. Experts believe dozens, maybe even hundreds, remain hidden in old dresser drawers, coin rolls, or forgotten collections. That means the miracle of discovery isn't just a story from the past, it could still happen today. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. The next discovery could be yours, but before you rush to check, let's slow down and unravel what separates an ordinary 1978 D quarter from one worth a staggering fortune. Because the difference is tiny, almost invisible, yet absolutely critical. First, the mint mark itself. On the rarest examples, the D from Denver is slightly misplaced or doubled, the result of mispunched dies. Collectors call it the kind of error that transforms common into priceless. Second, the strike. Some of these rare 1978 D quarters show evidence of double striking, a ghost-like echo of Washington's profile, or a distorted eagle on the reverse. These are the fingerprints of a minting machine gone wrong, and they send collectors into bidding frenzies. But here's the cliffhanger: it's not just the minting errors that make them valuable. It's the condition. Coins that survive decades without scratches, wear, or tarnish can rocket in value. A pristine mint state 1978 D with an error has crossed into the realm of $1 million sales. Meanwhile, a heavily worn example might slip under the radar, sold off as pocket change, its fortune lost. Collectors were shocked to learn that a quarter from the late 70s, not the 1800s, not ancient history, could command such wealth. It changed how they saw modern coins forever. Suddenly, 1978 quarters weren't just coins, they were lottery tickets in disguise, and the story doesn't end there. Imagine the adrenaline of walking into a pawn shop, buying a roll of quarters for face value, and later discovering one coin inside could make you a millionaire. That's exactly what happened to a collector in Texas. He thought he was buying silver bullion. Instead, he pulled out a 1978 D-era quarter worth more than his car, his house, and his retirement account combined. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it, but you won't. Not after today. Flip the coin. Study the mint mark. If the D looks doubled, crooked, or pressed too lightly, don't ignore it. Then, examine Washington's portrait for signs of doubling: the nose, the lips, the rim. On the reverse, check the eagle's wings for ghost-like lines. Finally, inspect the luster. A coin that still shines with its original mint brilliance could be the difference between a few dollars and $1 million windfall. The truth is, treasures like this hide in plain sight. They rattle in piggy banks, sit forgotten in glove compartments, and cling to life at the bottom of coin jars. But for the sharp-eyed, the persistent, the hopeful collector, they represent a miracle waiting to happen. So the next time you hold a quarter from 1978 with that tiny Denver D on the front, look closely. Don't shrug it off. Because history has already proven that one ordinary man's quarter became $1 million legend, and the next one could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a simple Washington quarter, the kind you flipped into a soda machine or tossed into your glove box, could secretly hold a value that changes your life forever. In 1972, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck millions of Washington quarters. To the average eye, they looked ordinary, just another silver-colored coin to keep the economy moving. But hidden among those countless quarters, a tiny fraction carried mysteries that collectors today would do anything to possess. One man, sifting through pocket change decades later, stumbled upon a coin that looked different. He almost dismissed it. But something made him pause, and that single moment of curiosity became the start of $1 million miracle. Because some of the 1972 no-mint mark Washington quarters carry subtle, almost invisible flaws, errors so rare that when discovered, they ignite bidding wars at auction. But here's the shocking part: most people who had these coins in their hands never realized it. They spent them. They lost them. They left them buried in jars. And yet, the few that survived in pristine condition are now worth fortunes. Collectors were stunned when one example appeared at auction. The gavel dropped, and the whispers in the room turned into gasps. The price didn't stop at thousands. It soared into the hundreds of thousands. And eventually, it neared $1 million. In 1972, the mint faced challenges in producing coins with consistent dies. A small number of Washington quarters show doubling on the obverse, on Washington's profile, on the motto, "In God We Trust," or on the date itself. These doubled die coins are so dramatic that once you see it, you'll never mistake it again. Dealers call them once-in-a-lifetime finds. And there's more. Some 1972 quarters carry striking errors from the presses themselves: off-center strikes, die breaks, or weak strikes that reveal ghost-like images. In the world of numismatics, errors mean money. But when those errors appear on a no-mint mark 1972 quarter, the values explode. One collector famously discovered his $1 million coin in an old coffee can filled with decades of saved change. Imagine his heart pounding as he realized that a coin he'd ignored for years was worth more than his house. That's the dream every coin hunter lives for, but the real secret lies in condition. Most 1972 quarters circulated heavily. They're scratched, dinged, worn smooth from years of being passed from hand to hand. But if you find one in mint state condition, brilliant, untouched, sharp in every detail, its value doesn't just rise, it skyrockets. Dealers are rushing to secure every gem quality specimen they can find. And collectors? They're battling at auctions, driving prices higher and higher. Why? Because they know how quickly opportunities like this vanish, and here's the twist: even if your 1972 no-mint mark quarter doesn't carry a dramatic error, in top-grade condition, it can still be worth hundreds or thousands. But when the doubling, the off-center strike, or the flawless preservation align, that's when $1 million becomes reality. Think about it. The coin you could have tossed into a vending machine in 1972 might today pay off a mortgage, buy a dream car, or fund an entire retirement, but most people miss it. They never look closely enough. They never know what's hiding under their nose. This is why seasoned collectors handle every 1972 quarter with care. They tilt it under the light, searching for that doubling on the date. They study Washington's profile, hunting for split lines or distortions. They run their fingers over the edges, feeling for a slightly off-center cut, and the deeper you look, the more mysteries you uncover. One quarter might show a faint die crack across Washington's head. Another could reveal letters struck twice, making trust appear like a ghostly echo. These details are tiny, but they transform pocket change into a treasure chest. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When collectors realized just how rare pristine examples were, a frenzy began. Suddenly, rolls of old quarters disappeared from bank vaults. Coin shops saw a rush of gray-haired veterans and wide-eyed newcomers desperate to check their stashes. Everyone wanted a shot at the $1 million prize, and the legend grew. Stories circulated, one man funding his child's college with a single coin, another couple discovering a quarter that paid off their debts in one night. Whether rumor or reality, the truth was clear: the 1972 no-mint Mark Washington quarter had become more than a coin. It had become a symbol of hope. Collectors were shocked, dealers were amazed, and ordinary people were suddenly holding dreams in their palms. But here's the lesson. If you want to uncover your own miracle, you have to know exactly what to look for. Start with the date, 1972. Make sure there's no mint mark under the eagle on the reverse. Then, examine the obverse carefully under strong light. Look for doubling in God We Trust, in Washington's profile, or in the numbers of the date. If you find dramatic doubling, hold your breath. You may have stumbled upon a coin that's worth tens of thousands, or even edging toward $1 million, and don't forget condition. If your coin is scratched and dull, it may have some value, but not the life-changing kind. But if it gleams, if it looks like it just left the mint yesterday, you might be holding the treasure of a lifetime. So tonight, when you open that old jar of coins, when you check the change in your pocket, don't rush. Don't dismiss that quarter as ordinary. Because hidden among them may be a silent fortune, waiting for the right person to notice. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a simple 2014 quarter, the Everglades National Park design, with the small P mint mark from Philadelphia, has shocked the coin world with prices soaring to $1.1 million in rare cases. And the craziest part? Most people have no idea what makes it so valuable, which means this miracle coin could already be sitting in your pocket change. But to understand how a coin worth just 25 cents could suddenly climb into $1 million territory, we need to go back to where this story began. The year was 2014. The United States Mint had launched the America the Beautiful Quarter program, each design celebrating a national park or landmark. And in the swamps of southern Florida, the Everglades, with its mysterious waters, sprawling sawgrass, and iconic wildlife, became the symbol stamped into millions of shiny new quarters. For most Americans, it was just another pretty coin. But hidden among them were a handful of errors, mistakes so subtle, so easily missed, that they turned ordinary pocket change into one of the greatest modern treasure hunts in U.S. coin history. One man in Florida said he found his coin at a gas station. He almost handed it back as change without a thought, until he noticed something strange. The details didn't look quite right. The bird's eye was doubled, the edges showed an odd strike, and the fields gleamed with proof-like brilliance on a coin that was never meant to be proof. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Collectors were shocked when the first Everglades quarter with these unusual traits hit the auction block. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. That single quarter, worth just 25 cents at face value, sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as word spread, more people began checking their coins. Then came the $1 million shocker, one of these Philadelphia minted Everglades quarters, flawless in condition, blazing with a full strike and carrying a rare double die error, crossed the auction stage and climbed past the $1.1 million mark. Gasps filled the room. Dealers could not believe what they were seeing. Most of these coins look almost ordinary. If you don't know exactly what to look for, you'd spend it, toss it, maybe even lose it between couch cushions. And that's why countless people have already let $1 million coins slip right through their fingers. Think about that for a moment. $1 million, vanishing in plain sight, and yet, the mystery only deepens. Why are some 2014 Everglades quarters worth so much more than others? The answer lies in the unpredictable world of minting errors and conditional rarity. Some coins were struck on special planchets by mistake. Others show dramatic doubling on the heron's beak or the wings of the ibis. Some have die clashes so bold they look like ghostly images floating on the surface. These errors are not supposed to exist, but they do, and collectors are scrambling to find them. But here's the most chilling part: even if you hold one of these coins right now, you might not recognize it. That's how small the differences can be. One woman nearly gave hers away. She thought it was just an ordinary Everglades quarter, until she looked closer under a magnifying glass. The lines were off, the strike was sharper, and the fields reflected light differently than any regular quarter. She sent it to be graded. When it came back certified as an ultra-rare mint error, the value shot past $500,000. That single coin paid off her mortgage, her debts, and changed her life forever. How many million-dollar miracles are hiding in pockets, drawers, or coin jars right now? That's the question keeping collectors awake at night. You empty out your change, glance down, and suddenly notice something different. A detail most people would ignore. But you look again, and realize you're holding a coin that could rewrite your financial future in an instant. Look closely at the Everglades design. On the left, you'll see the graceful anhinga bird with its wings spread wide. On the right, a roseate spoonbill, its long bill reaching forward. It's here, in these delicate designs, that the rare doubling errors occur. Some coins show doubling on the feathers, others on the eye or the beak. To the untrained eye, it's just a blur. But to a collector, it's the difference between a quarter worth 25 cents and a life-changing $1 million. Condition matters just as much. The coins that bring astronomical prices are often graded MS68 or higher, near perfect. A tiny scratch, a small blemish, and the value drops dramatically. But if you happen to have one that survived untouched, crisp, and flawless, the reward can be staggering. Most of these coins carry the small p mint mark just below the phrase, "In God We Trust." That little letter, for Philadelphia, is your first clue that you might have the right quarter. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these, paying eye-watering sums for even the chance of owning one. Because with every passing day, the odds of finding another decrease. People are hoarding them, grading them, locking them away in vaults, but one thing is certain: the hunt is not over. Here's what you need to do. First, check for the P mint mark. Second, examine the Everglades birds carefully under bright light or with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the beak, wings, or eye. Third, study the fields for unusual shine or proof-like surfaces. And finally, if you think you've spotted something, send it to a professional grading service. That little investment could reveal you're holding $1 million treasure, because the truth is, this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket, traded away for just 25 cents, but today, the right example of it has shocked collectors with a value climbing as high as $1.8 million. Yes, you heard that right. A modern quarter, struck in 2013, from a design that millions of people handled without a second thought, has become one of the most mysterious and breathtaking treasures in American coin history. And the strangest part? You could be holding one without even realizing it. The 2013 D-Mint Mark Great Basin quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series, coins struck to honor national parks and landmarks across the United States. Most of them passed quietly from hand to hand. They jingled in pockets, bought cups of coffee, and slipped through vending machines without notice. But among these ordinary coins, a few extraordinary errors slipped through the mint, errors that today transform an everyday quarter into $1 million miracle. Collectors still whisper about the first discovery. A man in Nevada, near the very Great Basin National Park honored on the design, was counting his pocket change late one night. At first glance, the coin seemed like any other, the intricate bristlecone pine carved into the reverse, the proud portrait of Washington on the obverse. But something caught his eye. A strange shimmer. An unusual strike. He set it aside. Weeks later, that simple decision changed his life forever, because when the coin was examined under magnification, experts were stunned. A doubling in the design, a misalignment in the strike, and a texture unlike any normal quarter revealed that this was no ordinary coin. It was a hidden masterpiece, one of the rare minting errors that had slipped past inspectors and escaped into circulation. But what happened next stunned the entire CoinWorld.at auction. The piece ignited a frenzy. Bidders pushed the price higher and higher. Veteran dealers who thought they had seen it all were left speechless as the final hammer dropped. That single 2013 Great Basin quarter, pulled from everyday change, had just fetched a staggering figure over $1 million. And that was only the beginning. Soon, whispers spread across collector circles. Other examples were rumored to exist. Some said the mint had experimented with dyes. Others claimed that a handful of experimental strikes were accidentally released. And in the fever of speculation, one fact became undeniable: if you could find the right coin, the payoff could reach as high as $1.8 million. Imagine it. A single quarter, lost in a jar of coins on your dresser, could be worth more than most people's homes. That is the magic, and the mystery, of the Great Basin quarter. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to buy up rolls of 2013 quarters, searching desperately for the rare varieties. Pawn shops and coin shows filled with hopeful treasure hunters. And every time one more error was uncovered, the legend of this coin grew even bigger. But the secret to spotting one isn't obvious. Most people glance right past it. And that's exactly why you need to know what to look for. Let me warn you now, not every 2013 quarter is valuable. Millions were struck, and the vast majority are only worth face value. But hidden among them are the golden tickets. First, look at the obverse, Washington's portrait. Some error coins display dramatic doubling in the inscriptions. The word liberty or in God we trust may appear slightly shadowed or doubled. This is one of the strongest indicators. And next, study the reverse, the bristlecone pine. On valuable errors, the tree's branches may appear blurred or stretched, almost as if they're melting into the background. Some examples even show die cracks running across the design, thin raised lines that signal a stressed minting process. Then, check the mint mark. The D4 Denver should be crisp. But on the $1 million varieties, it sometimes looks distorted, off-center, or oddly shaped. This tiny detail has cost people fortunes when overlooked. They're the ones struck on experimental planchets, blank coins not meant for circulation. These quarters have a strange weight, a different ring when dropped, and sometimes even a unique color compared to regular copper-nickel coins. Very few exist, but when they surface, the bidding wars are legendary. And here's the cliffhanger every collector must hear: one of these experimental planchet Great Basin quarters, with a doubled die and misaligned strike, sold privately for a figure that experts estimated nearly $1.8 million. Yes, one coin, a modern quarter, worth almost $2 million. Think about that. How many of us have brushed past a pile of change, dismissing it as worthless, never realizing that hidden among those coins could be the miracle of a lifetime? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Another collector's careful eye turned a quarter into a retirement plan. And right now, as you're listening to this, the possibility exists that your next trip to the grocery store could deliver you the same fortune. The hunt isn't over. In fact, it may only just be beginning. Every time a new variety is discovered, the value of existing coins climbs higher. Collectors grow hungrier. Dealers grow bolder. And the myth of the Great Basin quarter grows stronger. Never ignore your pocket change. Take the time to check each coin, especially 2013 quarters with the D mint mark. Use a magnifying glass. Feel the weight. Listen to the sound it makes when it taps against another coin. Because those tiny details can mean the difference between a worthless piece of metal and a ticket to a fortune. Mistakes at the mint are accidents. But when those accidents escape into the world, they become treasures. And treasures this rare don't just reward collectors, they change lives. Collectors today still dream of finding the next one. Auction houses are waiting. And one day, another story will break: another person who thought they had an ordinary quarter, until they realized they were holding $1 million secret, and it could be you. The 2013 D mint mark Great Basin quarter is out there. Some are still in circulation. Some are hidden in old rolls of coins. Some are sitting in drawers, in boxes, in jars of forgotten change. Waiting. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, a pocket piece, a parking meter payment, a quarter that nearly vanished into obscurity. But one day, a single 2002 D-Mint Mark Mississippi quarter stunned the collecting world when it sold for nearly $2 million. That's right, the coin most people spent on gum or gas turned out to be a hidden fortune. Imagine this. You're holding a coin you've carried for years, jingling in your pocket, nothing special. But under the right light, at the right time, someone spots the difference, and that difference is worth up to $1.9 million. The Mississippi quarter was part of the legendary 50-state quarters program. In 2002, millions were struck at the Denver Mint, each one showing the state's beloved magnolia blossoms. At first glance, every Mississippi quarter looks ordinary. Shiny, silver-clad, and common. But tucked away in those mint runs were mistakes so rare, so breathtaking, that collectors today will stop at nothing to get their hands on them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man walked into a small coin shop in the South, holding a handful of change. Among them was a Mississippi quarter he had nearly tossed in a vending machine. The dealer looked closer, pulled out his loupe, and went silent. Under magnification, the coin revealed what few had ever seen: a double die strike on the magnolia petals, letters that shimmered with doubling, and a faint die crack stretching across the design like lightning frozen in silver. The dealer's hands trembled. He knew this was no ordinary coin. Collectors were shocked when the coin was authenticated. Word spread quickly. One Mississippi quarter, a Denver Mint issue, graded at the highest possible level with errors so bold they could be seen without a microscope. That single coin traveled from a pocket in Mississippi to the auction block in New York, where dealers battled furiously for ownership. When the final gavel fell, jaws dropped. The price? Over $1.9 million, and here's the chilling part: experts believe there are still more out there. Why Mississippi? Why 2002? Why the Denver Mint? The answer lies in the story of the minting process itself. That year, the Denver facility was running at full speed, striking millions of state quarters daily. Dies wore down, pressure settings slipped, and flaws began to creep into production. Most errors were caught, scrapped, destroyed. But a few slipped through. A handful of survivors carry the kind of mistakes that transform a 25-cent coin into a treasure worth millions. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look at the magnolia blossoms on the reverse. On ordinary coins, the petals are crisp, even, perfectly symmetrical. But on rare Denver issues, you'll notice shadows of doubling on the edges of the leaves, like a ghost image. Sometimes the lettering around Mississippi appears stretched, thickened, almost vibrating. In extreme cases, the obverse side, Lincoln's profile, shows die cracks that snake across his face and down his jacket. These errors are unmistakable once you know where to look. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Why? Because the Mississippi quarter is one of those rare examples where a common circulation coin transforms into a once-in-a-generation discovery. A coin you might spend without a second thought, only to realize years later it was your lost ticket to fortune. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. A collector in Texas claims to have found another. He said he pulled a Mississippi quarter from a jar his father had kept since the early 2000s. At first, he thought the shine was unusual. Then he noticed the magnolia leaves looked wrong. Enlarged, thick, ghost-like. Experts verified it was indeed another Denver Mint double die. Though not as flawless as the first, its estimated value still reached hundreds of thousands. That coin hasn't sold yet, but whispers in the numismatic community say it could break records when it finally hits auction. Collectors were shocked. Suddenly, everyone started checking their Mississippi quarters. Old coffee cans, dresser drawers, forgotten piggy banks, all were emptied in hopes of finding another million-dollar miracle. But what makes this hunt so electrifying is the mystery. Nobody knows how many exist. Some say only 3 or 4 survived. Others insist there could be dozens hidden in circulation, just waiting to be discovered. Imagine being the person who pulls one from a pile of pocket change. That's not just a lucky day, that's a life-changing moment. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. So how do you know if you're holding the right one? First, look for the mint mark. It must have the bold D for Denver. Second, inspect the magnolia blossoms on the reverse, doubling on the petals, thick outlines, ghost-like shadows. Third, check the lettering around Mississippi and the Magnolia State. On rare error coins, the letters appear almost stamped twice, slightly shifted. And finally, flip to the obverse. Look for cracks, lines, or unusual strikes around Washington's profile. Most people never notice these details. Most people spend them without a thought. But the few who do look closely, who take the time to examine their coins, could uncover something worth up to $1.9 million. And remember this, the Mississippi quarter isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that history hides in plain sight. That treasures don't always glitter in gold or sparkle with diamonds. Sometimes, they jingle in your pocket, overlooked, underestimated, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and steady hands to reveal their true worth. So the next time you hold a 2002 Mississippi quarter, don't just see 25 cents. Tilt it under the light. Study the blossoms. Watch the letters. Because this exact quarter could be the one that changes everything, and if you're lucky enough to find it, you won't just be holding a state quarter. You'll be holding a story, a piece of American history, and a fortune worth millions. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.